Hello everyone, welcome to the Spooky Noodles Podcast. I'd like to apologize before we begin today's episode. I do have foster kittens again, so there might be some slight noises in the background, although I will try and minimize that as much as possible, but no promises because they are a mischievous bunch. Anyways, today we'll be covering the story Awoken by a Lamp, which is also known as Parallel Life. It was written by user temptotosssoon on Reddit. But anyways, what could possibly make a lamp so unsettling? Throwaway account because this is really personal. My last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. Note, he was 325 pounds while I was 120. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left work and doted on him and my daughter. One day, while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on 4 legs in a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too, as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at the fucking lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me. By this time, my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. This house is not real. My wife, my kids, none of that is real. The last 10 years of my life aren't fucking real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimension-wise. It took up my entire perspective, and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises, and I became aware of pain. A shit ton of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth," and opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk, surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots were freaking out. I was completely confused. At some point, a cop scooped me up, walked me across the sidewalk and grass, and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop. Seems he didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane as I would cry myself to sleep, hoping I would see her in my dreams. I never have. But sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He's perpetually 5 years old, and I can never hear what he says. We haven't really covered existential horror on this channel yet, so I'm glad to be able to do this episode. Horror is often about immediate fear that occurs in certain situations. However, the thought of constantly being under the stress of existential fear is quite awful. This type of horror can really alter your entire life, which is why it's one of my favorite types. If you enjoyed that story, please consider sticking around for more. Next Sunday, we will be reviewing the story of a friendly SCP. Our sources are linked in the show notes. If you've got any suggestions or tips for future episodes, please contact us at our email spookynoodlespod@gmail.com or at our Twitter @spookynoodles. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Make sure to keep your taste for horror alive by watching the next episode of Spooky Noodles on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or YouTube. Thank you for listening.